Hello and welcome to Guy Logic. My name is Temko and today we are taking a look at a game called Villagers. Villagers is developed by a developer called Bumblebee. It is an indie studio and it is published by Avant Quest Software Publishing Ltd, which is a bit of a mouthful, but according to Steam they don't actually have any other titles published, so I have no idea what their pedigree is like. Nonetheless, they are the publishers and Bumblebee is the developer. And what is Villagers? Well, it's a micro sim game where you build a medieval village. And what do I mean by micro sim game? Well, that's a game where you have a very small number of villagers, usually under 100, where you build a settlement and operate their day-to-day tasks, often with a lot more micromanagement than games like City Skylines or SimCity offer, but with a lot less overhead or overview and infrastructure than those games do offer. So it's a bit of a change up from usual things. We've seen a lot of games like this come out over the last 2 or 3 years. Obviously Banished, pretty much the same genre and same type of game as Villagers, came out about a year and a half ago. And that is also going to be the primary comparison between Villagers and Banished. Which one is better? Hint, it's Banished. But we'll go into that in a second. First, we're going to go and look at the options menu. If you do not want to hear and see me talk about options for the next 5 or so minutes, I suggest you press the annotation that is appeared somewhere on screen and skip straight on ahead to the gameplay segment. For the rest of us, strap in. We're going to look at options and talk a little bit about PC performance. First, for some reason the option starts in the other menu instead of the graphics menu, which is the first tab. I don't know why. You have quite a bit of resolution options available. You have a lock cursor to window mode, which doesn't actually lock the cursor to window, so there you go. And you have a windowed or full screen mode. No full screen windowed, but in these studios we can sort of forgive that. But lacking all the other games' technical issues, I mean, this is their least of their concerns. You have graphics preset going from low to ultra, as well as a recommended one that tries to decide on your computer specs what it should be. It fails miserably. It's important to note that this game is as stable as a two-legged car. It has crashed 7 times in the time period it took me to record this title. Now, I'm not sure if this is widespread or if it's just me, but it is still something I would like to mention. Thus, this game is technically not exactly what you would call polished. The game has some graphics options such as depth of field, ambient occlusion, anisotropic filtering, and anti-aliasing. But again, honestly, the game doesn't look that great, and it's sort of isometric, but you can zoom in so far that you can see all the jagged edges and all the low polygon models quite effectively. And the animations are also nothing to write home about, so there is quite a few things graphically lacking on this game. Now, it's an indie game, so we can sort of forgive that, but there are some other things also going on. Let's first talk about spoken language, which is currently English and German. I do not know if the German is any good. The English is okay. It is good for an indie studio, but if this was a AAA, it would get burned to the ground. It's not, thankfully, so it's pretty good for an indie studio. Music and options volumes, they're all here, pretty good. For some reason, this is not respected when you load up the game, so the initial audio cue of all the logos playing out before you get into the main menu is ridiculously loud. I do not like that. Game developers fix that. Keys are rebindable. You can rebind all these keys, which is really good. I really like that, and you can also restore them back to defaults. The game is mostly mouse driven, but you do have control over a bunch of things through the keyboard, which is great. But yeah, you'll mostly be doing it by the mouse. There's no reason to use a keyboard unless you need to, which is a pretty decent feature if somebody doesn't have the ability to use a keyboard or use a mouse and they can only use a keyboard. But the game doesn't provide enough functionality for that to be something somebody with a physical handicap like that could effectively use. So it's a toss-up. Also, the game has no colorblind mode or anything like that, so again, that. It has a default preset where you can change the speed by night to ×5, and then it goes back to whatever the default is during the day. You cannot actually set the default for the daytime. I left this at 1 because mostly I'll be playing at ×10 speed anyway. Nighttime or daytime, it doesn't really bloody matter. Scroll speed, zoom speed, you can change these as you like. I left them at normal. And you can also change the languages of the text and the like on screen. There's a bit of text here, tutorials obviously, and explanations, and tooltips, etc. And there's spoken dialogue, which is there, not exactly extensive. And you can change the player gender. I have no idea why this is in here. And you can also turn on tutorials, which is pretty useful. But the game is not exactly difficult, so you might not even need that. Okay. That is the options menu. The game's performance abysmal. It doesn't look great. and it isn't about as polished as a third. Let's get into some gameplay, shall we? Gameplay. There is 2 ways to play this game. You can either do a campaign, which has shipped 6 chapters. I would have loved to tell you how the campaign was in full and whether it was good or not, but I couldn't because chapter 4 was broken until 2 days ago in the development build I had access to. So I literally could not progress past chapter 3, and the start of chapter 4 just stood there and wouldn't let me progress. This is fixed in this build I'm at right now, but I have no idea if chapter 5 or 6 actually work because, again, chapter 4 was broken for well over 2 weeks. So yeah, there is again a caution to be sure not go too hard on this game from its technical standpoint because it's not that great. You will also have free play where you select a map out of the available maps. These are the maps you also play through in the campaign, so there is, to my knowledge, no extra maps added to the free play mode that you have not already played in the campaign mode. And this also brings it forward as a problem because, for example, on the campaign mode, only in map 3 do you get the secondary resource metal. Up to that point, you'll be doing with base resources such as wood and stone. And even stone is only unlocked as a stone quarry later on in the campaign, which means that the maps weren't built for that earlier on. So if you're doing free play, you don't actually get access to a stone quarry in most of the maps because it's not there in the campaign, so they never actually added them on the other types of map for free play. That is an oversight I do not understand. Now you might say, well, you can see it as a challenge map or something, but that just means you only have one map to play on that has all the necessary tools for free play, which is, when you compare it to something like Banished, abysmal. And Banished obviously has procedurally generated maps, which is a very different approach to these handcrafted maps, but it is an infinitely better approach in almost all situations where this is relevant. And if you're looking at the screen, you can probably see the lines and shades and rendering jaggedly move forward. But okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to press continue, dive into a gameplay segment, and I'll show you what is going on with most of the game and the gameplay elements. I've ragged on the performance, etc. quite a bit, but there's 2 more things I'm going to touch on the game's graphical and animations and performance overall. Now, the game does run at a smooth 60 FPS. I'm not sure if it runs higher than that or if it's capped at that. I'm positive it's not capped, but I can't actually run on a higher than 60 frame rates, so because I don't have a higher hertz monitor, so it doesn't matter for me. But it may matter for you, so take a look at some other reviews or a look at the Steam forums to make sure that it runs for you that way. There's 2 things I want to mention in this title that are particularly egregious to me personally. And you might be wondering, why then? Because there is a lot of love in this game. The developer has spent innumerable hours thinking, designing, building all these little buildings. Everything from the well with this extra little board on the side, to this house with like clothing on the line outside. Everything is well thought out of. Like there's a vine growing on this side, and even though the houses are identical, you can see that they're absolutely identical, because yes, it is an indie studio and they have limits to their budget. Everything is still made with love. Everything is still made with fine details. Okay, so when I press continue here, and I go ahead and take a look. Let's see, let me move speed down a bit forward. I take a look down here, and I zoom in on this NPC right here. There you go. You can see this NPC chopping wood. Right here. It's abysmal. I have no other words for this animation quality. They haven't even taken the effort to align the axe properly, so it at least looks like they're actually hitting the tree instead of nothing. So there's that. Also, if you look at this character here, he is mining one-handed and a bit of a choppy motion with that. It just looks so glaringly bad when everything is so finely crafted. Like, the attention to detail is amazing. You can see it here. Like, there's a rock here. Yes, that's because there is an actual rock in storage. There's wood in storage. Yes, there is. Well, here it is. Wood. 4 boards of wood. Yes, there are. Look at this. 4 boards of wood. And I'm not sure why you just haven't done that to the animations. It's such a glaring oversight. I'm not sure what's going on here. But okay. That is on the graphical and performance standpoint. Everything else runs and looks fine. Let's talk gameplay. Let's talk quite a bit of gameplay. So what is the game all about? How do you do it? How do you build? Now this is obviously a campaign map, and there's 4 main components to building your settlement and growing your villagers. First things first, you start with a certain number of villagers. They have babies, and these babies grow up. Your villagers grow as adults, eventually transitioning to elders and then dying. Your villagers need houses to house them. Pretty logical. In these houses, they can get babies. As you see, we have Jennifer here. We have Luca here and Dagmar here. These are the people, and as you can see, Dagmar is now age 8 and is also helping out by working the farm. See, there she goes, little Dagmar. Here we have Helena, and little Helena is 9 years old. So we have a couple of babies here and they're children, and they're helping out, but not as efficiently or effectively. They're just following their mamas around and doing, nothing much really. Once they reach old enough, they'll start working around on all the projects they would normally do. But how do you assign people to projects? Well, that's a good developed part of this game. Every job, every function has a corresponding task. You already have all these tasks set up. Workers not assigned are all-purpose. These are the guys chopping these trees here. These are the guys bringing over resources to build buildings, like right here for this house. I only have 2 of them, so it's gonna take a while for things to get built. Why do I only have 2 of them? Well, that's something I don't like about this game. Is that unlike Banished, and this comparison is gonna come up quite a lot because the games are extremely similar, even though I think Banished is a better game overall. Unlike Banished, this game doesn't have a way to get extra villagers in any way other than children. Which means that your primary focus initially is to get as many houses up as possible and get as many children up as possible and make sure they don't die. So this means you need a pharmacy. This means you need a church. This means you need a well and more housing and resources to expand on that housing, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm just building all the resources you can think of to get these houses built and expanded on. Houses and all buildings have an upgrade. Not all of them have a large upgrade. For example, the warehouse doesn't have an upgrade. The church has an extension. The pharmacy doesn't have an upgrade, and all houses have an upgrade. And these upgrades do a little bit extra. Upgraded house will store 2 families, so 4 people and babies instead of 1. That means 2 people and babies. And will also store some more food. The same goes to town hall. You can stand your town hall, and then it will have a guard tower which will defend people with knights, or guardsmen I should say. But and this is where the problems stem from. Because you only start with such a very tiny number of villagers, and it takes a very long time to grow villagers from babies. Initially, and until very late in the gameplay, for the first hours in fact, you will be very limited into what you can do with whom. Right now, I have spread my resources very thin. I have 3 people for food, and this is just enough to keep me at a stable food amount. I have one warehouse person, which I need in the warehouse to make sure that when merchants come, that they actually go to the warehouse so I can trade using gold. And I have a pharmacist, which makes sure that people have medicine. And lastly, I have a priest, which increases their happiness because there's nothing else really to increase their happiness right now. So, there's that. So I'm already, and I also have 1 stonecutter and 1 miner because I need iron and stone, and there's no other way to get them. That means that I only have 2 workers left to do everything else, and that is so crucially slow, which means we ump it up to +10 because there is nothing to do except to wait. Let's try that again. Okay, once we have completed the building, people move into that building, and that is really it. You wait until babies are born. In the campaign mode, you have quests, and these quests are followed by the fact that they're very simple. This is campaign quest. This is build a sawmill, build like a house, get a bridge, etc, etc, etc. Very simple quests. And most of these quests, I feel, in the entire campaign is more of an extended tutorial. Does it make bad? No, it doesn't. The quest is pretty interesting and the storyline is okay. Okay, now we have enough resources to extend this house. So we're gonna grab this house right in the corner, and press extend. That means I won't be able to use it until it's finished. And we're going to press continue again and up it to times 10. Just so it gets constructed as fast as we can. And this is most of the gameplay loop. You will get resources, you will gather those resources, you will run out of resource in a mine eventually. You'll have to build a new mine, etc. A map will run out of resources completely. And at that point, I'm not sure what you do. Because the game doesn't really have an end game. The game doesn't have an extended game mode. Or anything like that. And like I said, the problems with the maps in regards to free play is that they use campaign maps which are not designed for infinite play, so to say. So there's that. Now, one other thing I just noticed right now is that the game does take a pretty heavy performance hit when you up it up to plus 10. I am not sure why this is. There shouldn't be a reason for this. But that is the case. Nonetheless, I'm very happy that they actually have a plus 10 mode. This was one of my major issues with Banished, is that it was so slow to start up. This game is still extremely slow, even with the times 10, but it would be literally unplayable without it. So, good on you, developer. You can see a little green bar going on here while I build this large house. And there's a couple of resources necessary, and they're going to be brought over. Now, what components does the game have outside of that? There's 3 resources, as well as food, as well as tools. And tools you unlock very much later on. What does the game have for you to do later on? What does the game have to progress after you've build your hunting lodge, build your fishing dock, fishing, they call it fishing jetty. It's a fishing dock. Well, there's 2 upgrade paths you can do later on. They're not so much upgrades as they are linear progression curves. One of them is upgrading to large houses. The other is upgrading your buildings to, for example, have a chapel, a pharmacy, etc. The last one is upgrading your production to include a barn and a farm. A barn houses animals. You can have several barns. These will give you food, which means that the hunting lodge will become obsolete. This is a linear upgrade. You replace the hunting lodge eventually with 1 or 2 barns where you can keep cows and chickens and goats, etc. I'm going to just build this in a second for you so you know what the hell is going on here. I'm just up to times 10 again. Because you do need some of that great wood. There you go. Let me see if I can build. We also have a forester lodge, which is pretty good, which plants trees, so you actually have a way to regather. Now, I've not been exactly positive on this game, have I? I've compared to Banished, and I've said it's worse in almost every regard. I want to upgrade that almost in every regard, honestly, because it is worse. But is it bad? The answer to that is no. It's not a terrible game. Yes, it's technically a bit incompetent. Yes, the animations look sloppy as all hell. But is it bad? No, it does the job. It is a microsim game, and all aspects of the microsim game are there. They are available. They are definitely part of the game, and they are playable. There is no downside to any of these mechanics. They're solid, they're well thought out, and they complement one another. The pharmacy gets complemented by the fact if there is a what do you call it? A forester's lodge nearby. So the pharmacy has a forest where you can go to look for herbs, and then the forester lodge gets trees which you can cut down to get wood planks, which you can process in a sawmill. So the entire sim and management aspect of a micro sim game is here as you'd expect. The game isn't lacking in any glaring way, but it's not standing out in any way either. It isn't really projecting on me and saying, well, there's a reason to buy this game for full price on release day. There really isn't. I would just go to Banished and buy that and have everything I would want from this game in a game that's been out for a year and a half and has extensive modding support, something this game doesn't actually have, to the best of my knowledge. But what does this game have going for it? And I'm really struggling to find things here where I would recommend this game over just looking to buy Banished. I can't. Is it incompetent? No. Is it great? Not really. And that's a shame. I wish it was. So, thank you for watching. If you liked this video, press the like button below. If you don't like this video, well, there is a dislike button for exactly that purpose. And if you want to see more content like this, or other critical content of games and gaming industries in general, then I suggest you press the subscribe button down below, and Guy Logic will deliver. And until then, I wish you a good day, and until next time, right here on Guy Logic.